Hello gamers, how are we all? Today I'm going to be talking about a game that was very close to my childhood. So sit back and relax as I take a lot of time to be nostalgic and talk about Star Wars Republic Commando, a game that came out way back in 2005 when I was most likely too young to play it back then, but still did. Republic Commando being a highlight in Star Wars games over the years. Now of course it is nowhere near the greatness of the likes of KOTOR, but it does something not many Star Wars games do, especially back in 2005, and that's explore the more gritty take on warfare in the Star Wars universe, and be one of the only games to do so since Dark Forces to not be done with a lightsaber or the Force. But all living things have the Force, so it kinda has the Force I guess, but it doesn't. Actually, do clones have the Force? I don't know, that's definitely a question they answered somewhere in the EU. As the title of the game may suggest, you take control of a squad of Republic Commandos, Delta Squad. Commandos being the best of the best within the clone army. As whilst on Kamino, Jango Fett saw the run-of-the-mill clones as more like cannon fodder, and Commandos being the tool for any job no matter how hard. Clone Commandos are trained separately by a group of Mandalorians handpicked by Jango himself. But that's all I'm going to cover on the Commandos lore outside of the game. But if you like Star Wars, I highly recommend you read up on them, as they are awesome. Unfortunately, a lot of the stuff about them now is EU. I actually think their whole existence might be extended universe. I'm not 1000% sure on that though. Like, we're seeing clones that look like Commandos, but I don't know if they are the Commandos that we know from Star Wars Republic Commando. Now, do you remember 3 sentences ago when I said you take control of Delta Squad? Well, you really do, as this game is the first ever squad control shooter I played. And I do have to say, it does squad controls a lot better than some of the modern squad control games I play. Most likely due to the developers wanting to make sure it's easy enough for you to control on the terms of a controller. And not only is the control easy, but the movement of your squad is very well done. How they position themselves for a breach or just general movement around a level. Always trying to stay in cover and look out for their fellow clones. And the reason they are able to get this level of, I guess, realism is during the making of the game they got a special ops instructor to teach them and run through some drills with the animation team, which I'm sure taught the team a hell of a lot more than just looking up videos or books on how squads are meant to act. And from the video that you get with the game, also god, I remember when games had extra unlockables like that, it was good old days. The inspector they got in, a man named Joe, seems like the no nonsense kind of guy, so even if the team didn't really want to learn and wanted to say goof off, I'm sure he would have taught them anyways. But it just really shows in the game, making it feel ageless to a degree. Like, yes, the graphics may not be great and I needed to play with mods to make the game runnable in 16:9, but the clones don't move around mindlessly. They look like they take cover, not standing out in the open. And something else which I'm sure they picked up on that day of drills. If a clone goes down and you don't tell him as the commander to go pick him up, they will call out that they are going to help up the other clone anyways. which also helps grow attachments between the separate clones outside of their interactions with the leader, you the player. They will act for the betterment of the squad outside of the player's direct control. But all this talking about the squad, let's finally meet them. Starting off as the clone we play as, the leader of Delta Squad, 3A, nicknamed the Boss. And even though we play as this clone, it is the most bland of the team, which I feel is on purpose, allowing the player to project themselves onto 38, at least more than they would any of the other clones. Boss is also the only clone or part of Delta Squad voiced by Jake the Muss, where the other squad members sound completely different, allowing more personality, or not more, but for theirs to shine a little bit more than the bosses and every other clone you hear in the game. Then there is Scorch, or 6-2, everyone's favourite explosives guy, having a knack for the rapid rearranging of rooms, and the even more rapid construction of doors. However, with Scorch being the boom boom guy, you may expect him to be an off-the-rails loose cannon kind of clone. However, he is quite the opposite, as he seems to be the most by the rules of the whole squad, always telling the team not to rush him during the placing of a bomb, because well, if you rush someone whilst they're setting up a bomb, might not go well, and I'm sure Scorch knows that. Then there is Fixer, or 4-0, the tech guy of the squad, slicing the likes of terminals, doors, windows, and other things along those lines. Fixer, at least for me, was the most forgettable of the squad. Not because he is bad, but I mean, one of the three of them has to be the least memorable. The main thing I remember about him is that he is a stickler for the chain of command, and he will also at times during the game ridicule his team for not reading the mission brief. And then there is everyone's favourite Delta member, that being the one and only Sev, or 07, the stealthy sniper, the recon expert with a knack for killing. Apart from being a massive 2005 edgelord, Sev seems like a pretty cool guy, even with his specialty for ending droids and bug life alike. Sev even keeps track of his kill count, believing that the other clones are too, which makes him extremely disappointed in himself when he loses count at certain points in the game. Which also leads to a good question that Scorch asks: does destroying a droid dispenser get you an extra bunch of kills, or is it just the one kill? But at the end of the day, all I know is that Sev would be very happy with the clanker hate going around the internet currently, or a year ago more likely. I don't know, I'm not up with the trends, I'm not one of the kids anymore, I'm too old for that shit. But at the end of the day, even though the clones have their specialities, the truth is that they are not special, as each of the squad mates is equally skilled as each other. Scorch is no better at setting up bombs than Fixer or Sev, or even yourself the boss. Which, upon first thought, you may think that's not right. What's the point of the squad member having preferred traits if they are not the best at it? But I feel it's the right choice. Each clone would clearly be equally as skilled as each other. All commandos were raised in the same pods and trained by the same select few Mandalorians, and not only allowing us the player to get more attached to the clones, it also shows the difference in training between commandos and regulars. Regular clones are forced to keep to a strict regimen, where commandos, if they seem to have more of an enjoyment in explosives or slicing, I personally imagine the Mandalorians are more likely to allow them to flow down that line of thought. Also, I should add here, in the game, they don't particularly show you getting trained by Mandalorians. But you know, that's my headcanon, and I read it in the EU and it just stuck with me as a kid. And even if it wasn't Mandalorians, I could still believe that Jango told the Kaminoans? I'm having a brain fart. The people of Kamino, to let the elite troopers have their favourites or develop more of a personality, which is a good thing, especially once again for us the player. Like, if you ever put Fives, Kicks, Hardcase or Jesse in a lineup, it would take me a minute to figure out who is who, unless they have their helmets off, then Fives has the 5 tattoo. But apart from that, I don't know. But Scorch and Sev, they couldn't look less alike for clones, that is. Which is always good when you can tell your characters apart with only a second's glance. And on the topic of looks, the game, for a 2005 game, the game looks very okay. I really like the way that the HUD is the clone helmet. I know that there are a couple of games that show the helmet, like I believe the MX vs ATV series did that quite a bit. But this could have been one of the first times I have seen it, and it's just a pretty cool feature to add for certain games. Even when you ignore the fact that if you are wearing a helmet shaped like the Commando's helmets, one, you are not getting that clear of a view, but if you do get that clear of a view, you will see two things. That the Geonosian bugs are a lot more scarier looking than in the movies slash TV shows slash previous games from this one. And as the game was trying to capture a more gritty Star Wars feel, like this image here, which used to be my wallpaper for the longest time, it has silvery grey battle droids instead of the colour that we are all used to, which I like to refer to as clanker beige, which I kind of like, but I do prefer to play with a mod that turns them back to clanker beige, but I couldn't find a download for that mod this time round. And real quick on the topic of droids, I love how this game makes super battle droids the real threat they should be. But that's enough about that. How about we finally dive into getting to talk about the Commando's combat with the droids, as we take a dive into the missions that Delta Squad was a part of during the Clone Wars. Or the ones we get to see during the game more correctly. However, before we get into the first combat that the Deltas saw, we get to see through the boss's eyes the first time he opens them up inside of his pod, as we get glimpses of the clones training from the classroom work to the specialized training of the commandos. But we finally get to take control of the squad at the first Battle of Geonosis, the first battle of the Clone Wars, and the first real test for the new army of the Republic and the Commando program. And Delta Force. Our first mission is a good one, as Delta Force has been sent in advance to first take out an highly influential Geonosian target, the second in command, Sun Fac. And after the squad meet up on the battlefield, we get to see their skills in action. They finally arrive at the hangar where Sun Fac is hiding. However, he is unluckily for the squad about to get away in his starship. However, in return, Sun Fac is unlucky enough to be running from Delta Squad as Sev destroys the ship, killing Sun Fac. After completing the job, Deltas are given their next mission. Other squads failing has now forced new missions onto the Delta's shoulders to take down the droid production factories on Geonosis, which of course, after fighting their way through the bugs and droids, they are able to achieve that goal. they leave the 4 clone team with their biggest task yet on Geonosis. That is to take down a droid control ship to allow the main invasion force to get a strong enough foothold on the surface. And it is a long fight for Delta to get to that station, fighting through waves and waves of droids and bugs, including their hardest enemy yet, a spider droid. But after taking down the droid and getting the door open, the team are able to gain access to the interior of the station. However, once entering the ship, we get to see the biggest test of Delta Squad. And that is when the squad is separated, forced to leave each other to quickly bring down the ship, as 3A makes his way through a super battle droid storage area, where you know every single player shot one of the sleeping battle droids and promptly died afterwards. The awakening battle droid putting you in your place very quickly, and I've played this game many times and I still do it every single time. It's also a good example of when you realize how much you rely on the rest of the squad, as dying with your squad won't end your game, as your squad will slowly clear the remaining enemies, or at least enough until it is safe for one of them to pick you up. However, when you are alone, you really feel alone. Not just having to slice or plant the explosives yourself, but needing your team to save you. 3A feels weaker without Scorch, Fixer and Sev, which I don't know if that was intended, but I really like that feeling for this game. Like, it's not any one of the deltas that are better than the Muggle clones, but their ability to work together. But then again, Delta are still better, as each member is able to complete their task as the team make their way back to each other, where we are introduced to droidicas, where Sev shows us how to deal with such a threat. Take that, Qui-Gon Jinn. After all that, the gang meet up and make their way to the final part of the squad's time on Geonosis, as we get into the hardest mission on this planet, as the team takes the bridge of the core ship, as the droids send everything they have to get the squad, as they upload a virus to take down the ship. And this was incredibly difficult. I only just completed the upload with all my squad on the ground, but after the team is quickly exfilled to the Prosecutor, a Republic Acclamator class ship, as the Deltas are sent on more missions for the betterment of the Republic war effort. And we join the squad around a year after this event, when we are tasked to find out what happened to their original home at the Prosecutor, as the ship hasn't been heard from in weeks. So after a spacewalk, the gang enter the abandoned looking starship, as they separate to go receive a bunch of memory modules to find out what happened to the ship, when for a little bit of time the game goes horror, as we hear over the radio as Scorch is talking about some static coming through his visor. Then a couple seconds later we hear screams through the radio, as 6-7 seems to be in some kind of fight until his comms cut out, with no one able to regain connection with him, as when we get some static of our own on our visor, as we quickly find out that there are some scavenger droids around causing the static, and they are quite a threat at first, until my aim got better than I could actually hit them. Then meeting a normie clone whilst talking to him from across an open pit, he is tackled into the pit by one of the drones. Further into the vents that we are currently sneaking through, we see a bunch of clones fighting, but never seeing our target, as the horror grows, until the boss makes his way deeper into the Prosecutor, where he finds that it is the Trandoshans that have taken over the ship. But the team eventually all meet up, as it's turns out the Trandoshans are selling the ship to the Separatists. So after collecting the last member of Delta Squad who was taken to the ship's brig, the team race off to the ship's hangar in order to blow close the hangar doors, at one point using an ATTE walker to shoot closed a bay door. Now, is it as cool as using an ATTE in space? No, but it was up there as coolest uses I've seen of an ATTE in the game. It's probably the one where they used them in space, this one, then the one where they were climbing the mountain in the Clone Wars movie, if you were wondering on my personal list of the ATTE epicness scale. After that, I believe we have what is this mission's hardest segment, but I really wouldn't know, as for the last stand, the Deltas need to activate the Prosecutor's guns to destroy the Separatist control ship, and in order to turn on and fire the guns, 3 terminals need to be activated. So I assigned one clone, I believe it was Sev, to guard over us, as me and the rest of the team just put our heads down and pushed buttons until the guns turned back online, as I continued to stare out the window, as with the help of another Republic ship, the control ship is destroyed, shutting down all the droids in front of us. So I didn't really see it as a problem, I just pressed some buttons and watched a movie. But I think Sev did have a time of it. But of course, not too bad of a time for a Delta, as the Deltas pick up another tick in the wing column. Now we join the Deltas for their last mission and one of the final battles of the Clone Wars, another couple years later at the Battle of Kashyyyk. Kashyyyk being the forest home planet of the Wookiees. The Commandos have been sent as an advanced squad to help the Republic's landing on the planet. The first mission is to find and rescue one of the Wookiee chieftains and war generals, Tarful. He has been captured by some Trandoshans, who capture Wookiees to use as slaves, most likely in the spice mines. But while searching the Trandoshans' compound, the Deltas come across something very unexpected, as High Command confirmed General Grievous is in front of them. As the clones are spotted, Grievous sends his magma guards to stop the freeing of Tarful as he escapes, most likely to fly off for his meeting with Obi-Wan Kenobi. But after a hard battle, the clones are able to free Tarful and keep him alive. And I don't know why, maybe my aim was awful, but I failed this mission the first time, finding it incredibly hard to kill the magma droids that have been left to stop us. But the second time round, after I failed and died, I dropped each magma droid in under a minute, or just around there. Clearly a skill issue on my part, I just don't understand how or what I did wrong. But after returning Tarful to his position in the Wookiee War Cabinet, the clones are then tasked to make their way towards a bridge and blow it up before the main droid army gets there, as this bridge is one of the key movement points for the droid army's invasion of Kashyyyk. And as someone may have predicted, as we arrive at the bridge, the bomb is planted, and unfortunately the bomb, out of all the explosives that Delta carry, was packed wrong and doesn't go off. Which, if I'm being honest, I don't understand why this is a problem, as we are sent to get a rocket launcher to use to blow up a fuel line running under the bridge. But like, use another bomb. We used a bomb to get into the room with the rocket launcher. So why not just plant a second bomb next to the failed one? Even if it wouldn't have been strong enough itself to blow up the bridge, the failed one was just packed wrong. It's still an explosive / has explosive materials in it. But at the end of the day, I get to use a rocket launcher, so I guess I'm okay with the outcome. After blowing the bridge, we make our way back to Tarful to help the Wookiees fighting on this side of the bridge, where we also help the Wookiees regain control of the power to one of their main tree bases. When after Reactivating the defenses, Delta is tasked with using the 4 turrets on top of the tree to take down a droid battleship just above said tree. And this is where we get quite possibly the hardest part of this game, and maybe any Star Wars game I have played to date, as we make our way around the top ring of the tree, fighting spider droid after spider droid as we drop off a new member at each turret along the top ring, with Delta Squad getting smaller and smaller until we are left facing down a spider droid with diminishing ammo and health. After great skill and hiding behind boxes, we are finally able to defeat the droid, and dropping off the last clone at the turret, I was straight up fearing what the boss would have to go through on his way to the final turret that he would be manning. Luckily for me, as I was running tremendously low on ammo at this point, I think the devs knew that the player has been through enough at this point, at least I had been through enough, and they were about to emotionally destroy us, which we'll get to in a second. So they give the boss a not easy but not difficult route to the final turret, and after mounting it and sending a fiery beret of lasers into the Separatist cruiser's hull, the ship blows up, the sky raining with blown up cruiser parts, as Delta Squad have completed another mission for the Republic, making it thousands of times easier for the main Republic army to make landfall on the planet and invade Kashyyyk. The squad meet up at the boss's location as they wait for orders, when over the comm we hear Sev is being attacked and overwhelmed by what sounds like a full squad of enemies, if not 2 squads. When the boss gets his squad ready to go and save Sev, command comes in over the comm telling the team to leave him, under direct command from Jedi General Master Yoda himself, as the team is forced to leave Sev behind, as we all know good soldiers follow orders. Once on the gunship, we hear from Yoda that it turns out an invasion force has landed to take Kashyyyk, a Republic invasion force, and the Deltas need to meet up with the rest of the force at a forward operating base as the game fades to black. And oh my god, replaying this game has brought back so many memories. Somewhere deep down in my psyche, I knew that I disliked that green little toad, but I couldn't remember for the life of me why. Like in the Clone Wars, Yoda is great to his clones, but it was this game. I understand why I hated Yoda now, and I can't believe I forgot. Maybe that's why this game isn't a part of the Disney canon, as I personally have a hard time believing that Yoda in Disney's canon would tell Delta Squad to leave Sev behind, especially with how he is shown in some of the episodes with the clones in Clone Wars. Like, he, more than other Jedis, in my opinion, in the Clone Wars, saw the clones as individuals, not clones. But that has been my replaying of the amazing, gritty, Jedi-free look at Republic Commando. A very unique game for Star Wars, and one we haven't really had since. I mean, we have had games without Jedis, like Star Wars Outlaws, but that was A, just a bad game, and B, was nowhere near the same type of darkness / grittiness of Commando. And I feel another game like Commando would be very interesting, and you could really have a deeper message to say with having an army of droids fighting an army of clones. There is something there to be said, but I'm not the right guy to say it. I haven't thought of it too much, but there is a point there, isn't there? To quote, I don't know where the quote came from, but one I heard in a Linkin Park song, when the rich wage war, it's the poor that die. When the people wage war, it's the things that die. Like, droids aren't humans, clones can be created by the metric boatload Soken droids. There's something there. However, I'm just the one who will talk about it once someone comes up with the idea. But anyways, if you haven't played Republic Commando before, I highly recommend you do. Just install the widescreen fix mod, unless you have a 4:3 monitor or one of the classic staticky fat box TVs that I can't remember the life of me at the moment. Oh my god, am I that young that I don't know the name of those types of TVs? And I think you are going to have to use the mod, as I don't think this game will get an Aspire remake anytime soon. I could be wrong. If Bounty Hunters with a Dominatrix Sith was remade, maybe Careless Yoda will. And outside of that, I'm sure there are a lot of people who would love to remake Commando and bring it to a whole new generation of console gamers and gamers who don't like or trust themselves with modding. Anyways, I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks for checking out this video and listening. If you like Republic Commando, let me know in the description below. If you call it Republic Commandos on accident like I did multiple times in this script, also let me know. Anyways, leave a like if you liked, subscribe if you like Star Wars. Peace.
Sergeant, get those troopers into the gunship.
Ready for liftoff. New gunship. Okay, Group B, let's move it. Let's go. Push those cannons to the stern. Load the ammo and the ordnance. Let's go. Let's go.
Sir, we're gonna split up for the drop, but we'll meet you at the RV on Geonosis. See you planetside, sir.